Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode in the weekly nonprofit podcast, People in Fundraising. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, and I'm really excited to welcome today's guest, Chris Amherst, to our program. Before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about, for people that can watch the video, the Star Wars action figures and books that are behind me. Chris and I have both a strong affinity for the galaxy far, far away, but that's not the point of today's conversation. Chris and I like each other's content on LinkedIn. That's how we first got connected. And you had some recent exciting career news that we can talk about as well. So it's good timing in that sense. So Chris, if you could please introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll get into our questions.
Okay, perfect. And thank you, Tim, for having me on. It's funny. Advancement is a very small world. There's lots of connections we have in common, including Harvard, which we can dive into much later. But I am Chris Amherst. I am the Director of Data Operations at the Purdue for Life Foundation, and just started this past January there. So
wonderful. We're in week 3 at the time of our recording, correct?
Yep, it is week 3, and I'm still going through training. So,
well, I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your workday as you're trying to get the lay of the land at Purdue for Life Foundation, and thank you in advance for what you'll share with our audience today. So, Chris, if you could please tell our audience a little bit about how you entered the fundraising profession, what attracted you to it, what has kept you in it. If you want to talk kind of high level about roles and institutions, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story and pathway when I've had to think about it, because I actually started off when I was in college. So I went to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and there is a reason that my last name's Amherst, but that's an entirely different story. I was looking for a job, and of course, Telefund's always hiring students, and I started off as a student caller. Only lasted about a week, which was probably good. I realized that annual giving was not my forte, and kept up with kept up with my studies in computer science just as the internet was taking off back in '92. And picked back up into fundraising and philanthropy a little later. After I graduated, I started working at UMass-Amherst's Science Technology Advancement Corporate Foundation Relations, and I was working as kind of an admin assistant, executive assistant, schedule the flights and everything else, and by the way, do the prospect research briefing for the directors of corporate and foundation relations, because it was a tiny staff and there was only 3 of us.
Wow.
I then got my first real job after that, where I worked at the Census Bureau, and then found my way back into higher ed, and I had been bouncing around higher ed a little bit, was at Harvard for a bit, where I worked at the registrar's office on the academic side. And I'm acutely familiar of the difference between Harvard College and Harvard University. Yeah. When we relocated to DC, landed with George Washington, where I ended up in their advancement services team. I was on their technical services, and that was kind of my first real big introduction to the advancement services community, advancement services practice. I started there, worked as a programmer analyst, was there when we moved from Banner to Illusion Advance at the time. And then stayed there for a number of years, took on different projects. I actually worked with a couple. I think Kate Osterman you've got coming up
Yes.
soon.
Yes.
And we overlapped at GW a little bit, and I've overlapped with some people at GW because I was on the team that was handling a lot of the reports, analytics, data, including Lindsey Nadeau and Catherine Flaatten and I, who were over in prospect research at the time.
Awesome.
So was at George Washington for a bit, decided I wanted to do, expand my skill sets, career. Didn't want to just be a programmer analyst where it's just build the one thing, ship it off, build the one thing, ship it off.
Right.
And took a leap over to Rochester Institute of Technology, go Tigers, where I was their essentially assistant director of advancement services, or basically assistant director of data. And really was helping them work on maturing their, effectively where I'm at these days, kind of the equivalent of before you even had a term for it, data operations. It was really just about how can we get the data we have on campus into our system in a way that we can help other teams leverage that to do their jobs and really be able to have better information and intelligence about the people they're engaging with, the fundraisers' needs. I'm the type of person that loves building relationship with fundraisers in that capacity, because oftentimes on my side of the fence, I'll see things that a fundraiser may miss or not catch because they've got a portfolio, they've got a lot of things they're doing. But a good example of this is that, because we were talking about Disney before this, is that one of the alums at RIT works for Disney, was a former admiral, and I talked to a development officer who's a regional, and was like, "Have you had a conversation with him? Because I'm pretty sure, if you're up at a flag officer level and a VP at Disney, if we haven't talked to them about a gift, we probably should at some point." But left RIT and then took over, came in as a director of data management at the University of Chicago, where we were going through a big system conversion and transformation, going from Illusion Advance, a legacy system, and moving into one of the more recent CRMs systems that are out there, Ascend, and was there, kind of at the tail end of that conversion and really helping reorient the data team into being less of a back of the house and more of we're strategic partners. And that's what brought me to Purdue for Life. That's where I ended up going, because I work for the VP of Information Technology at the Purdue for Life Foundation, but Michelle Bates and I are on the same page as where a data team really needs to be these days. It can't just be like the days of front office, back office are long since gone.
Sure.
And we're all on the same team. Like we're all on the same team playing on the field together. It's just now, there's a big realization in the for-profit world of data and analytics really is helping drive business and drive the decisions being made. Like, why can't we do that here in these spaces?
Yes.
And so that's kind of the work that I'm gearing up to doing at Purdue for Life, is really shifting the work of the team so that we can be more of a strategic partner and viewed as allies to the fundraisers and the prospect research team and everyone else, where we understand the value of the data and why it's meaningful for the organization, but it's also there to help serve the mission. And I've always described it, the key line I've said, a data team's fundamental focus should always be managing data for the benefit of the organization. That's really what they should be doing. And if they're not doing that, then the organization's not realizing the value of what they have.
Yes. Yeah. Those are great points, Chris. And one thing that came to mind for me as I was just tuning in to your career trajectory, and as a follow-up, this is not on the spreadsheet, but the questionnaire, but I'm just curious, given the various shops you've worked at and the different locations, what have you learned about yourself as a person with all of these moves, career moves, personal moves, relocations?
Well, part of that is just that's kind of old history for me a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in a military family, so
Oh,
my
okay.
dad is a retired major. My sister's in the Air Force. Like my family's been serving in some capacity since the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
So moving from shop to shop to me is that's pretty common
Okay.
for anyone that's in the military. And I always like I am I always have the deepest respect for. I did not serve myself. My family has, and I've worked with people that have served, and I have the deepest respect for them because it's a job that has a lot of risk involved sometimes, and sometimes it's really boring, but it involves a lot of. It's all focused on service and mission, and that to me, I think, is what I carried through on being in philanthropy is really gearing into that mission and
Mhm.
then understanding where's the service come in with that.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't realize until more recently, like that, coming from a military family and coming up from that ethos, especially in public service, it's like my first job was the Census Bureau. I was working in the federal government, but it's always been about service to the greater good. And I think that's just been baked into who I am in a lot of ways and what I prefer doing. And like the part that brings me joy is being able to bring that, help enable the greater good. I think I even told that I when I talked to someone at Alma Base, I said that um, uh, I'm blanking on it now. The comment I had was that I think the comment I had is that that's really a fundamental piece of philanthropy and giving back in many ways is helping. I'm not on the team that's curing cancer, but I'm on the team that's empowering others to do that work, and that to me is the core. Like we're lifting up those cancer researchers, we're lifting up those people that are doing that important work because I did not do great in biology when I was in college. So, but data and computing and all of that, I know it well. And if I can help a fundraiser connect the dots to get that research grant for the cancer researcher, that's the sweet spot.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. I'm just curious. You mentioned earlier, Chris, like the back office, front office mindset has been um, deservedly so going out the window. Um, how how has that been for you to see that mindset shift in relation to the work you do with gift officers, advancement leaders, and the teams that you work with and manage, all in support of the mission?
So at Chicago, we went through some exercises to help really redefine our purpose. But I will say, as a leader in that space, sometimes there's a lot of. I'm sure some managers can relate to this. Sometimes you feel like you're a therapist to your team at that
Yeah.
point. You're listening to all of the how have you been treated, and that was a bad relationship. I completely understand. Let's figure out what we can get out of it. And I think in some ways it's a two-way conversation. Like a partnership anywhere is always a two-way conversation, and it has to start with respect on both sides. Like you both have to respect what the other is bringing to the table. um, there's somebody. I've talked to chief data officers. I go to these events where a bunch of us in different places that are all in a chief data officer or kind of in that data leader role are. And it's interesting that we all talk about the same problems.
Oh,
There's no difference of what I'm dealing with than somebody that is working in Caterpillar or a bank. We all are dealing with the same issues. It's just a difference of scale and budget and resources. But what's interesting, and the part I come back to, is someone had a great quote that they basically said if your data team is being treated as a service desk or a help desk, that's all how they'll ever be perceived.
Yes.
If your data team is treated as a strategic partner, that's when you realize the return of investment on your data. And that's really kind of, to me, where that shift in the mindset of back office, front office has to come in. Is we're not the service team, we're not the help desk, we're not the team that's just there to do it and resolve your ticket and move on with the day.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my job well as a leader of those teams, I'm setting them up to be successful and viewed as a critical component to helping the parents team realize the philanthropic goals they're trying to realize, and supporting that work. And we're going to get a return of investment on that work. Like, we're going to realize more things because my team will be able to sit there and figure out, like, well, what are the data points that are needed to be able to make these decisions? Who do we talk to get those to where we need to get that information and put it into our system, go through all the compliance work that needs to happen with it, set up the data sharing agreements and everything else. But if we're working together as a strategic partner in the room for this conversation, then there's a bigger benefit overall than if it was just well, I just need you to go do this thing for me.
Right.
And I think in some ways that front office, back office has always been a false dichotomy. It's, the teams that are working behind the scenes, the comment I've made when I've presented before is, if you want to know who's going to make the World Series in baseball, look at which baseball teams have the biggest analytics team in their organization. And like the Dodgers and Yankees, they're paying people to do all this work to help their players improve their performance.
Yes.
So imagine what happens when you view the analytics and data teams in that lens. Like, what are they doing to help you as a fundraiser improve your performance, or you as a prospect researcher improve the work that you're doing? Like, if you look at it that way, then it's like, it's not a back office, front office. It's these guys are going to help you improve what you're doing by helping and talking through what is it you're missing? What is it you need?
Right.
What can we bring to the table that would help you hit that portfolio efficiency or hit the portfolio goals even more? And like I said, it's like going back to the one fundraiser I had a conversation with, of like, wait, there's someone in our database, works at Disney as a vice president, was a flag officer. He's never been contacted in like more than 5 years. How is this person not bubbling up as a potential, even just to talk to?
Yeah. Good analogies and good examples, Chris. Thank you. I want to jump down to question 4, just to give you time for these questions coming up. And one of this one here is drawn from a LinkedIn post that you wrote about a year ago, and that's my first thought. I would love to have you on as a guest, because in the post you spoke quite candidly about resilience, honoring people that are close to you who have passed on. You talked in the post, written about experiences with toxic work environments. I'm curious, what prompted you first to be admittedly very vulnerable on LinkedIn? And secondly, what do you hope at the time, or what if people see it again, what do you hope people will take from your sentiments and experiences?
So I will say, in our house, we celebrate Dia de los Muertos. We're very multicultural here. We'll be celebrating Lunar New Year here soon, but and that holiday is important to me in that I don't talk about it often, and that LinkedIn post is one of the few times I even kind of drop the masks that we wear on LinkedIn sometimes. Because I've gone to a therapist, and one time a therapist had said, after hearing how many people's funerals I had gone to in my life, they said, after hearing that, I would have been surprised if you weren't depressed, because not everyone has an easy life. And I think that's, we don't, and it's very true. There's been like I've seen quotes where someone says, you don't know what struggle someone's going through until you start asking them a question. And we all carry these different weights and burdens. And on that particular day, I think what was for me frustrating was, I think it comes down to one of the first rules I had on my team at Chicago that we implemented, and we even kind of had that rule at RIT across the team I was on, was that the idea of self-care comes first. Matters. Like, that's the first rule. Like, that is important. You can't be a high performer if you're not taking care of the things that are important to you, both yourself and with your family. We need to make time and space to be a whole person and not just show up at the office and do the work.
Yes.
And I also think the one thing that, and on my team, I've always worn my heart on my sleeve, is that I wanted to also point out to others in the philanthropic community that there are those of us out there that are suicide survivors, that there are those of us that have dealt with mental health issues, that anxiety and depression, these are things that are really issues within the community.
Yeah.
And, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't at least acknowledge that, that everything is fine. And especially, when times are difficult, troubled, there's lots of things going on. It's a lot of the communities that I am connected to outside of my office. Like, I'm very well aware of mutual aid societies and things like that, because we live in places sometimes where these informal structures and networks are more important to what we need than the things that your company might send you to, or your organization might send you to. Because as much as I love the EAP outlet, it is a very simple solution for very complex problems.
That's right.
And it's very hard for, talking to someone on the phone is not the same as talking to someone in person, or working with someone that knows the benefits of cognitive behavioral therapy and the different therapy types that are out there. The one reason I've gone to therapy has a lot to do with building the toolkit to be able to get through a day.
Yes.
Because what I brought up on the post was, at the time I was also frustrated because, it's difficult working in environments where you're not trusted, you're not treated as I think there's days where I think we all realize that the place we're at might not be viewing us as a human being, and that, we're not a robot, we're not a cog in a machine. We actually have feelings, we have needs, we have wants, and I think the part that was interesting to me about the post wasn't so much that I was candid about it. It was that it highlighted if who you work for cares more about their reputation and less about how are you doing, that kind of highlights to me the disconnect between saying that you have a great culture and having a culture that is welcoming and open, honest, and is telling people, like, we want you to do your best work here and we want to support you. And that to me is, I think that's the biggest highlight to me with any place, is like, if you don't feel, and I've told my team this before, I want them to own their careers. And there's a question and an equation in that conversation of, on one hand, as an organization, we need to know whether you're worthy of us. But the flip side is you need to know whether we're worthy of you. And
Exactly.
if your answer to that question is no, you're not worthy of me, then I've always told my teams, like, I will any of the teams I've led and managed, I will support you whether you're here or not. Like, I will do my best to lift you up and support you and cheer you on wherever you go, regardless of whether it's working at where we are or whether it's someplace else in the future.
Yeah.
Because that question is that fundamental binary question, you know, that is important, of knowing whether the organization is worthy of you, not just whether you're worthy of the organization.
Yes, I so appreciate the time you took, Chris, to share those sentiments both on LinkedIn and here for our audience. And I think as you were talking, a couple of instances came to mind, and you mentioned, like, cogs in the machine and whatnot. And I can still remember the exact moment that I had a manager say to our team, "You guys are all resources," and very deliberately, like, pointing out the hours we worked and suggesting, like, we support a couple of fundraisers that travel internationally, so we may need to work different hours and be on call for them if they're in Southeast Asia. So you may need to work on a Sunday. And for me, with my religious identity, like, I do not work on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm not a resource. I'm a person. And
Yeah.
and to our credit, the team did talk to our manager, who, she was from a different generation, and this was a second career for her. And I think she was probably maybe just sharing what had been said to her throughout her career by her
Yeah.
managers. But it just demonstrated, the importance of knowing the people on your team first and
Yeah.
foremost. So
I've made comments before that I've learned more from a bad manager than I've learned from a good manager sometimes,
yes.
because the bad manager has taught me the this is how I don't want to be sometimes, or this is how I don't want to treat a team member. That's actually how the self-care camp's first rule came in with the team I had at Chicago, because I had a manager. My spouse had just lost her father. We were originally he was in hospice at the time, and we were talking about going out to visit him. And I was having an argument with my manager over whether I could take bereavement leave or just take vacation. Like,
Wow.
um, it was like, we're not traveling twice. Like, this is a one-way trip back, and we're coming home. Like, we're not, if we're out there, it's a chance for her to say goodbye. Like, we're not going out to the funeral afterward.
Yes.
But having that conversation really kind of cemented in my mind of, like, well, how does this person view me? How does they view the team? Like, how are they, like, if you're managing something according to the process or the policy, like, there's a time and place for, uh, you know, there's a time and place for paying attention to the process and policy. But I think there's an argument to be made about, if you're putting the policy first before the person, then I kind of question where the priorities are, or even just where, like, the one thing I strongly would emphasize with anybody I manage that is a manager is, like, if you don't have empathy for your team, like, we can work on that. Like, that's something we can work on.
Mhm.
But you need to be looking at who you're working with as a person. Like, they're a person, and they're bringing a lot of things to the table you don't know about. And if you're not approaching them as somebody that is not just a number on a spreadsheet, then we need to have a conversation about that. Because
Yes.
I'm definitely my mother was used to used to help with her labor union, so I'm acutely aware of the conflict between ownership and labor with that regard.
Well, as you mentioned empathy, Chris, just then I was writing a questionnaire for an upcoming guest, and I have a master document of about 200-ish questions and quotes. So this was not on your questionnaire, but I came across a quote about empathy from Bob Geldof, who back in the late 70s, early 80s, he was with the Boomtown Rats, an Irish rock band, and then went on for a solo career, and he was the primary organizer of the first Live Aid concert in 1985. And he remarked recently, and he's had some considerable personal loss in the last decade or so. Empathy is the glue of humanity. It is the basis of civilization. And it just came to mind as you were remarking about the emphasis on empathy, how important it is to lead with that in our jobs. And I just thought it'd be a good time to share that quote.
What I love about that quote is there is actual so I catch a lot of magazine articles all over the place, from architecture to popular science and all that, and there was and I know this has come up a little bit more in terms of like the environment we're in these days, and someone remarked about that they were able to tell where like in time, going back into archaeology and all that, and going through, some of the historical ruins out there, they could really tell where a civilization or society was at by how they took care of their citizens, simply through the basic act of, did they actually set a bone? Like, and think about this, like,
Yes.
if you and I broke a bone these days, we'd go to a hospital and we get patched up and go home. But
Yes.
before we get into all the current innovations and technologies in medicine, like breaking a bone would have been fatal in a lot of times and a lot of eras. Someone actually taking the time to go to somebody and set that bone said more about what the society valued, versus, hey, we need to just conquer these people and move on. It showed that there was a care and consideration for the people in society, and that, like, in a lot of cases, those civilizations and those communities are ones we probably still pay attention to and know of, because the ones that wouldn't have cared, there wouldn't have been anyone left. Like, so as human beings, we do have an innate sense of, being able to be empathetic to each other. I think in some cases, we either override it out of our own self-interest sometimes, or we get caught in that trap of thinking that our opinion might be more important than someone else's, type of issues, where we think because of where we are in our status and station. And I think most of us, like most people, forget that it's like, doesn't matter how high you go, it's just as easy to fall all the way down below. And it's like, there is always the great code of, the one thing you can always pay attention to is the empathy of someone by paying attention to how they treat the people that are, the people that are reporting to them or working with them, or at, a lower status or station, or, as they are the people up. If you, the best rule I always had is, if I don't get to know the person that is greeting people when I walk into the door of the building, if I don't know them, know their family, then I've done a just disservice to myself and empathy, because this is someone who I'm seeing all the time, every day.
That's right.
And not even being able to say, hey, how did your knee surgery go? That just kind of tells me sometimes more about someone's curiosity more than anything about what do they care about, what are they paying attention to. But yeah, Bob's not wrong. Bob is very right in terms of that is how we even are still here walking around.
That's right.
Because if we didn't do it in time, in ancient times, or times that predate the modern era, then we likely would be walking cats, dogs, or dinosaurs, or whatever other life form would have taken over at that point.
Exactly right. Yes. Well, Chris, I have really enjoyed having you on today and for our conversation. I wish you the best as you continue
Thank you.
to learn and grow in your career and the work you're doing at the Purdue for Life Foundation. And we gotta talk offline. I didn't know that you went to UMass-Amherst like I did, so let's pick that up sometime.
Yeah. Definitely have more connections than just Harvard and some of the people I know you interviewed. Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I appreciate your time today, and thank you for being a thoughtful guest and for what you shared about your career journey and personal growth. And for our audience, you'll be able to find Chris Amherst's conversation in mid-March of 2026 across the customary viewing, listening channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Podbean for the audio only, just for people that prefer to listen to podcasts. And thanks to my 100th guest, Luis Diaz of WISE and the Donor Participation Project for his sponsorship of my website. You'll be able to find Chris's interview there at peopleinfundraising.wordifysites.com. Well, Chris, I hope our paths cross in real life at a conference sometime. And let's talk about UMass and Star Wars offline.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I hope we cross in real life, because I have a trading card I can give you.
Whoa, all right. That sounds enticing. Have a great rest of your day, Chris.
You too. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Bye-bye.